Time for the recruiting roundup on the YouTube and podcast homes for BamaOnline.com. Travis Schreier, senior analyst alongside site publisher Tim Watts. And it is a pretty special edition of the roundup, Tim, as we just heard from elite 2025 wide receiver Alabama commitment Ryan Williams that he will actually be reclassifying to the class of 2024. I know this had been rumbled about, talked about. I know you and Andrew, who will join us shortly, have been hit up about this pretty much nonstop, it seems. So your initial reaction to it finally coming to fruition on Monday morning?
Yeah, it's kind of been funny because we knew about it early on that he was going to try and wanted to have that option. Now, if you want to try and have the option to reclassify, you're probably planning to reclassify, but he wasn't ready to announce that. Obviously, he wanted to wait till today. We respected his wishes. Now, we went quietly through the whole summer, and then Auburn found out he might reclassify, and all hell broke loose. It changed the whole game, but we knew the whole time that this was what he wanted to do. This was the plan. We knew exactly what this announcement was about. We're not surprised. We didn't think it was a flip or anything else. We thought he was going to announce after a state championship game. Andrew Bones joined us.
Here
we just started Andrew, but Ryan, we're just talking about how we knew what was coming with Ryan. He wanted to finish his senior year, and performance-wise, I don't think it could have been any better. I mean, I know they came up short. One of the greatest high school games I've ever seen. I haven't seen anybody that wasn't super impressed. I've got guys in the NFL that actually saw that game talking about that game with me, which is pretty cool. But we knew Ryan wanted to finish the season, then have an announcement, and we knew it wasn't a flip. We knew this is what it was.
So, Andrew, as expected, I guess, with this announcement on Monday morning, but doesn't make it any less impactful when you think about Alabama's 2024 cycle and a couple of impressive wide receiver commitments already to this point. But Ryan Williams seems like that kind of guy that even moving up a year, still going to be hard to keep him from one of those top 2 or 3 spots in the 2024 class where receivers are concerned.
Yeah, it was obviously a big day for Ryan. Getting that monkey off his back, announcing the reclassification. Just because, as Tim has been pointing out, I mean, we've known about this for several months. I mean, we weren't surprised at all by the announcement today. His father told me back in the summer that this was happening. Of course, as Tim mentioned. Other schools started picking up on it kind of late in a little bit later in the process, and thought it was a positive for them. But we knew that this was something that was very positive for Alabama, and something that they'd been working to get done for a while. So I know Alabama is excited as far as the 2024 class. I talked to Charles Power, who is the On3 Sports Director of Recruiting and Scouting, or recruiting rankings and scouting yesterday. And he said, this is probably, the best wide receiver class in several years, several cycles. I mean, it is a really deep year. I think there's maybe 9 wide receivers that are currently ranked amongst the top 30 players overall in the country. I mean, that's almost unheard of. So Ryan is one of the premier guys in that group, and he's going to rank amongst the top 3 or 4 guys. I'm really intrigued to see kind of where he ends up ranking. And I think the good thing with Ryan is he is going to play in the Under Armour All-America game. And this was a decision that we've also known about for a long time. Ryan told me a few months ago that he had already committed to play in the game, that they knew about the reclassification, and that he would be playing in it in January. So he's going to have an opportunity to go up against, a lot of these top guys. He'll be seen side by side, and, how does he stack up to Jeremiah Smith, who's committed to Ohio State, Cam Coleman? I think that's probably going to be one of the more intriguing debates is who's the best wide receiver in the state of Alabama, because we were talking about Ryan being a generational type player at the receiver position, and probably the best, in my opinion, the best high school wide receiver that we've seen in the state of Alabama since Julio Jones. But Cam Coleman.
One thing I want to point out real quick, because there seems to be the common thought that you're kind of punished if you reclassify. Because we saw it. Now, here's the thing. I really want people to listen. If you got to cut this out and put it on the board, please do. They're not punished because they reclassify. What happens is every class isn't equal, right? Last year, Des Ricks was in a weaker class, 2024, the Alabama commitment. He went to a stronger class. Therefore, Des dropped because of that. It wasn't he was punished for it. Now, Ryan, 2025 class is much better than 2024, in my opinion, with the exception of wide receiver. Wide receivers absolutely loaded. We were discussing this on the roundtable last night. And, hey, Ryan's got my vote. I think he's fantastic. I agree with Andrew. He's the best wide receiver I've seen in recent memory. But Jeremiah Smith is legitimate. He's a South Florida kid that put up numbers. And you've got Cam Coleman and you got Michael Hudson, who's committed to Texas Tech. So this is a really good class to jump in there with Andrew.
And guys, we're showing the footage, the huddle footage of Ryan Williams from his junior season. And look, he's doing a lot of this against 2024s in 2023. So, it's not like he wasn't great against guys that were a year ahead of him in class this season. And as we're seeing, whether it's the quick game, whether it's the vertical passing game, strength after the tackle, after contact, being able to accelerate, the kick return game. Andrew, this is a guy who really, when you look at everything you want in a wide receiver, this is it.
He plays a lot bigger than his size, too. This is a kid that was 155 pounds as a sophomore. And he's out there physical. He breaks tackles. He's tough. He's always trying to get yards after catch. He loves to block. And that's what we really saw from him this season, even though he had over 1,300 yards receiving and over 20 total touchdowns. He loves to block. The first two clips on his senior highlights are of him blocking. And, that's going to make Alabama happy because they love their receivers to be really physical. And, to be at his size at currently 165 pounds, he's going to add some more weight. He's not going to be a big, thick 200-pound receiver. We're going to see probably a little bit bigger than Devontae Smith coming in. But man, he moves a lot like Devontae, and I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to do. And even though he is reclassifying, and he's moving up from he's a junior in high school, and then in a few months he's going to be on the field, with Alabama players, freshmen through seniors, that he's going to be able to step on the field and be able to compete with those guys right away and challenge for early playing time.
Guys, we do know that he has reclassified to 2024, but in terms of a timeline for an arrival at Alabama, do we have a definitive sort of understanding of when that will take place?
Yeah, he's expected to be in this summer, right? The thing I want to pop into here while we're talking about Ryan, he's 16 years old.
Wow.
He's not some old guy. He's not old for his class.
He didn't redshirt.
Grades, that's what I'm saying. Grades get confusing because you'll have a guy that's a freshman who's 15 or 16 years old. Ryan's 16 years old right now, is my understanding. He'll turn 17 later. But Andrew's coming in this summer, right? Won't be this kind of – I was going to say this guy skipped a year. It seems to be decided not, in the last 8 or 9 months. I'm sure it was on his mind. Again, you start talking NIL money. So to skip a year and to be, if you're skipping your senior year at the start, basically, end of your sophomore year, it's probably going to be hard to be a mid-year. So that's not particularly surprising.
And Andrew, I guess in some instances, especially these days, it's a business decision. I think it even was before when you saw very few of these because you want to get to that first NFL contract potentially. Now NIL has probably accelerated the process. And maybe we see guys, or we're going to see guys that do this previously or into the future that probably don't need to do it in terms of being ready really to take that next step. But this is a guy who looks like he's, as you outlined, physically, he's only going to continue to make strides. But boy, in terms of skill set, and he's a smart football player too. You can get that from watching him. He looks as ready as anyone.
There's very few guys that, as soon as the ball gets into your hands, that the entire stadium's going to stand up to watch to see what he does. He is, that type of player. We saw that as a sophomore when he won Mr. Football. I remember watching him last year thinking, I can't believe this kid has 2 more years of high school football left. That's how good he was. And, once we kind of started hearing about the reclassification, we knew that that was going to happen. And, we knew that he was going to have an opportunity to make a big impact as a junior, but also, once he gets developed a little bit, and gets into that Alabama strength and conditioning program, he was going to have an opportunity to really make a big impact. Possibly as a true freshman. I don't know yet if that's going to be the case, but it's going to be really hard for Alabama to keep him off the field because he can take it the distance just about any time he touches the football.
Tim, what does this do for Alabama's 2024 class? As we talked about earlier, two really promising wide receiver commits already. You got a dynamic tight end and Caleb Odom committed, Julian Sayin at the quarterback position, number one in the country at his spot. Boy, this looks like a dynamic group, really, when you talk about the receivers and the quarterback coming in here.
Yeah, I think perception is big. I mean, you look at guys, they're basically going off how many people are a 5-star. Now you've got the number one quarterback in the country. You got a possible number one wide receiver in the country. You got a possible number one tight end in the country. You got the number one inside offensive lineman in the country. So if you like offense, hey, you're headed down the right path. You know what I mean? So I love that. I'm such a recruiting junkie that I saw this on the roundtable last night, and I was thinking it too. And I think he got blasted a little bit. They were like, hey, this messes up the 25 ranking where we could have been number one. I was thinking, yeah, it kind of does. I agree. But, I mean, you bring in this guy that's a talent. The one thing is, like, with Ryan, he'll get bigger. He'll be stronger naturally, only 16 years old. But if he doesn't, I mean, we've seen guys like this. We've seen Deshaun Jackson. I don't think he weighed a pound more at the end of his NFL career than when we saw him at the Florida, California All-American game. Because speed kills. Smitty certainly haven't got a lot bigger. Now, I think they get stronger. The comparison part, that's what I'd like y'all to hear too, because I think Peter Warrick, if you're old, Andrew probably doesn't know who Peter is. He's still an infant. Peter Warrick, he's still a baby.
Braden in Florida. Yeah.
Andrew thinks Fred Rouse. No, I'm just kidding. Feel free.
I see some of
Fred Rouse when he told me
I see some Odell Beckham Jr.
I see Deshaun Jackson. I see Smitty.
And I know he's not as big as maybe Odell now for sure, but like we were talking about earlier, he plays pretty big. And Odell, when he was at LSU, a little different player than he is now. But
yeah, no,
do y'all want to know the updated rankings per On3 Sports team rankings?
No.
What are they?
Tell us. Do not tell us.
Okay.
Go ahead, tell us. Go ahead.
Well, Ryan, did change that 2025 class. Alabama now has the number 2 class in 2025.
Way to go, Ryan.
Yeah,
slipping.
So, Jamie French is mad right now at him. So, and then in 2024, they have moved up from 4 to number 3. Now, keep in mind, Alabama's recruiting class hasn't finished yet. There's still some big names that are out there that they could add in the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as far as the number 1 class. Do they potentially have a shot to get to that number 1 place once again? I don't know if that's going to be the case, but yeah, I mean, we're going to see some more commitments over the course of the next couple of weeks, in the next 9 days. Can you believe that? Next 9 days, we're going to have the early signing period. So it'll be interesting to see how it all turns out.
We got some viewers checking in, some subscribers checking in on that comp question, Tim. Jamie M says Percy Harvin. Now that's world-class speed. And I don't know what Ryan Williams runs. I just know he doesn't get caught, it seems like. So I'm assuming he's elite.
He's a little bit faster than whoever's chasing him. It doesn't matter who it is. Percy, I love Percy as a player. Percy was always thicker to me, though. Built like a running back almost, and obviously could play in those positions. But I think dynamic-wise, yeah, I mean, the thing about it is every comparison's a great comparison, right? We're talking top 10 NFL draft picks, college All-Americans, Heisman candidates. So that tells you something about Ryan just there. There's no poor man's whatever. I mean, they're all thinking of Ryan at that top level. And the one thing I like about him is, talent. I like how competitive he is. You know what I mean? I like that he plays hard. Like Andrew pointed out, he'll lay hands on you. He'll try to block you. He's not scary. That kind of reminds me of Smitty. Smitty's the same way, where he'll try to block you, against the physical odds. But really, when you're looking at a player, the only knock on him is he's only 16. And that's the best knock in the world. If that's your weak spot, then you're doing something right.
guys, there was so much talk about this coming to a head today, and some of it entailed possibly Ryan Williams flipping to Auburn. Or did you guys ever get that sense through this process? I mean, where was that coming from?
I think, as far as where it was coming from, obviously, the Auburn fan base, and I think, there was a lot of talk on the Auburn message boards about Ryan flipping, and that there was a 50% chance that he was going to flip, but or they had a chance to get him in their class. I don't think Tim or I really felt that way. I felt like, I think that we always felt pretty confident that he was, solid with Alabama. Continued to tell Alabama that, his commitment was solid, and we know Auburn's going to continue to, pursue him and try to flip him away. But he's always been pretty open and honest with us. He talks to us on a regular basis. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He seemed to enjoy taking some trips to Auburn, and obviously his dad. A lot of people like to say, "Oh, his dad played there." Well, his dad played there for 2 years, and then he left, transferred out of the program, and not like he's been back every single year as a big fan or anything like that. This is a kid that grew up. Ryan grew up watching Alabama. Has only known success at Alabama. I guess he wasn't even alive during the Mike Shula years. He's only been watching Nick Saban and seeing the success of the Alabama program and all the receivers that have come through there. And I think Alabama has always felt very confident and comfortable with where they stood with Ryan. But you never know. We saw Perry Thompson flip during the summer. I think a lot of people look at that and say, well, it could happen with Ryan too, but
it started. Really, let's be clear. It started on the Auburn site, the Auburn on 3 site. They did an interview, and I think it was said. They said Ryan, as he walked away, I think it's Jeff Lee, who was our Auburn recruiting guy. I believe the story goes he was talking to him, said, "Hey, what's your announcement about? Because of classification." And Ryan looked over his shoulder and said, with a sly grin, "Or I might flip." Well, he didn't flip, so we knew that part wasn't true. But I'm pretty sure I saw that on Josh Newberg's roundtable or one of his recruiting stuff. So it started from the Auburn side that it could be a flip. But like Andrew said, we never. So all those at me on the message boards, we did know. Just so you'll know, we did know exactly what this was, and that doesn't mean what's going to happen in the future. But we knew without a doubt what today was with Ryan Williams, and it was a big moment for him reclassifying. Good moment for a good kid in front of a very appreciative crowd of people at Saraland who have been blessed to watch him play for 3 years.
So does this mean Alabama is done at wide receiver for 2024, guys, or is there a possibility of maybe flipping a flip?
I mean, Perry Thompson's never ceased communication with the Alabama staff. Now, he seems to be pretty solid from his actions and his thoughts and stuff like that. But there's been communication. I mean, Alabama staff's known him a long time before the Hugh Freeze staff got there, in fact. So Hugh Freeze is caught up, did a good job, obviously, with him to flip him. But, I mean, the communication's there. It'd have to be a guy of that caliber. You agree, Andrew, for Alabama to take another wide receiver? It'd have to be
I think you also, you talk to Ryan and those guys, make sure they're comfortable. Not that it's going to be based on their comfort feeling of other receivers potentially in the class. But I think, it's something that it would probably be run by them. Just let them know, hey, if we're still recruiting this guy or that guy, we might take them just to let you know. But I think Perry Thompson, certainly one of the guys that Alabama would welcome back in the class if that's a possibility. Obviously, a lot of speculation and rumors been kind of running wild on
this weekend. Wow. Yeah. Ton of this weekend.
But
I guess you also think about 2025 because you've got Jamie French in that class too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And you got Julian Sayin, the number 1 quarterback in the previous class.
So I think, you look at Alabama's classes, and I think a lot of receivers want to play with that type of class, those type of players, and obviously play for Coach Saban and this staff. But as far as any other receivers, I think Perry's probably really the only one now. Arian Hampton out of Texas is an athlete that was seen by Coach Saban last week. I don't think he's necessarily recruited strictly as a wide receiver, but that's a guy that Alabama still has communication with. But as far as Perry, we know Alabama saw him last week. Would expect they will probably see him again this week, but we'll just have to kind of wait that one out and see what happens. I think it'd be really tough flip for Alabama, but he hasn't stopped communicating, so you just never know what might happen.
I think that the thing about recruiting, the dominoes that fall, they don't always fall in a straight line. When Perry Thompson committed, he was easily the best wide receiver they were likely to get because Cam Coleman was committed to Texas A&M. Well, when Jimbo Fisher got fired, that opened everything up. Auburn went all in on Cam Coleman. He's not far from the campus, so it made sense. Alabama never got any traction with Cam, so that changed the dynamics. All of a sudden, you got two guys. Perry's not even the highest ranked guy on that deal. Ryan Williams is being recruited, and like Andrew alluded to earlier, and we kind of got sidetracked, but the in-state wide receivers is bananas. I mean, this is not three guys like, Perry, Cam, and Ryan Williams in the same class is just insane. It's not something we're used to seeing at all.
So, guys, it was a big official visit weekend for Alabama as well. I guess it was split between commitments and guys that are still out there, not committed to Alabama. Andrew, you got a little overview of that for us in terms of the guys that made it to campus and maybe the feedback. Obviously, Ryan Williams was there on Saturday too, which I think was pretty telling, I would say.
Right. They had 6 official visitors on campus. 3 of those guys were commitments. Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. You also had Joe Ionata, the 4-star lineman out of Tampa, and also our Clearwater. And then who's the William Sanders out of Brookwood, 4-star number 4 interior lineman in the country. As far as uncommitted guys, or at least uncommitted to Alabama, not committed to Alabama, you had Tristan Jernigan, who's a Texas A&M commitment, been committed to the Aggies since I think before the summer. Then Alabama extended an offer, so there's been some interest there. I still think Alabama would like to add one more inside linebacker to this class, and he's certainly one of the guys on the short list of remaining targets. And then you had Favor Edwin, who's a 6'8", 290-pound lineman out of Georgia. This is a kid that just started playing high school football, finished off his first year, and Alabama's been really impressed. I mean, they were impressed with him this summer when he camped, and then have watched him as the season has progressed. But he's probably a developmental guy, but certainly somebody that Alabama is pushing for. And then you have our man Steve, probably the most famous guy on our message board the last 6 months. Steve Bua Mulua. He is one of the best.
We leave Bone hanging. We leave Bone hanging on that one every week. Don't we,
he tried. Now he went in practice.
It's like he's trying to get that high five from us.
Yeah, we've been calling him Mbob Mua. But
I've been calling him Steve. Don't let me in with y'all.
I think he likes that. I think he likes being called Steve. I mean, that's his name, so just call him that.
But he's a legend. He's the most famous Steve I know right now. I know that much.
That's right. Well, I actually talked to Steve last night after he got home. Lives in Quebec City, Canada, which is Tim's favorite place in the world.
At Christmas. At Christmas. Let's be clear.
At Christmas, okay. But Steve had a great weekend. He's going to announce a decision on December the 20th. His family, this was their first trip. This was their first college visit. So it was pretty eye-opening for them. And they're not going to go on any more trips. He's going to take a visit to Mississippi State this upcoming weekend and then make that decision next Wednesday. But his family's not going to be going on that visit. I think that's probably a good sign for Alabama. But we'll have an interview with Steve about the weekend on BOL a little bit later today.
No, and I kind of like the fact he's going to Mississippi State because they were the first school on him, right? He's showing a little loyalty. Yeah, that was his first offer. You got to respect that he's going there. It's a new coaching staff, I believe, obviously, but he's a guy that's kind of a respectful sign to go visit Mississippi State. When Andrew and we reported last night in the Nuggets that he was going to Mississippi State, I got a lot of why Mississippi State, but that's the reason why, out of respect, I think. And I was told he genuinely likes the campus. He felt like it was a good thing. But Alabama, like Andrew said, Alabama's did a fantastic job there and feel they're in good shape.
I think we talked about this last week. Didn't State keep David Turner too, their defensive line coach?
I think we did discuss that. Yeah.
even with the head coaching change.
And that's really kind of the main reason. The relationship that he has there with Coach Turner. I think if he would have left, he probably would not have visited and may not have gone anywhere this weekend. I know Florida had communicated with him, but once the defensive line coach left or was fired, they just kind of lost interest in Florida. But the relationship very strong with Freddie Roach. Coach Roach has done a great job with Steve, really from start to finish, and may also be going to we'll see if he makes a trip up to Canada this week to go see Steve and his family.
So what about next weekend? This has been a crazy weekend. A lot of news to come out of it, but another weekend before really we kick this thing off for early signing day. Tim, how's that shaping up, guys?
I think we have a couple commitments coming in, but obviously Jaden Baugh is the big one. Running back committed to Arkansas, was at Florida this week. Kind of interesting prospect because he's just getting to know a lot about Alabama. He's just getting to know a lot about Florida. I think Florida has some confidence. I think Arkansas is going to fight to keep him. This is a talented guy, but he's an interesting coming in. And we're kind of like sitting back waiting to see what happens with the portal. Are there any portal visitors? This last weekend is where, the magic sometimes happens. Now, I will warn the fans, they want a surprise, but all surprises are not good surprises. I keep saying that. You can get a booby prize. So, sometimes it's best to keep what you've got, but I know Alabama's been working some kids to possibly come in. That weekend can have surprises. We're not teasing them or hiding anything from them, but it's the last week, and there's a lot of jockeying going on this week.
Yeah, there's surprises.
Tim's now scared half the Alabama fan base with that comment.
They stay scared. I do not scare anybody.
Doesn't take much, does it, Andrew?
No. But he
shows up on campus and they're like, "Oh man, he's saying goodbye." I was like,
"It's not just I don't think it's just this weekend. This whole week is really important for Alabama because Nick Saban is going to be doing final in-home visits with key targets. He's out in California today, seeing mainly commitments, and many people know the Alabama commits who are out there: Julian Sain, Peyton Woodyard, Xavier Brown. He'll be seeing probably some other kids." But then, he'll be walking through the hallway, get some pictures. But he's going to be busy Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They'll be on the road seeing, top targets. So we'll be having the updates on BOL about those guys and how things go. This weekend, as Tim mentioned, Jaden Baugh will be visiting campus. Red Morgan, I think Red is actually he's like the one Alabama commitment who has yet to take his official visit. Like outside of Ryan Williams, we'll have to check with Ryan and see what his OV schedule is going to look like. But Red Morgan's going to be in town. He's coming off a state championship, won Class 7A state title game last Wednesday. But we're also keeping an eye on potentially any uncommitted guys that are going to be coming in for unofficial visits this weekend. You never know who might surprise and come on campus. There's also a chance that we're going to see a couple more transfer portal guys visit this weekend as well. We know the staff will be out seeing a few portal, not necessarily targets, but players that they might have some interest in and might potentially bring in for visits. I think some of those decisions are going to be made over the next few days.
One more thing to jump in is that this is where if you watch closely, you can kind of get the view. I mean, it's just as important as who Nick Saban does in-home with as who doesn't he in-home with, right? I mean, that's kind of going to see that pecking order. And, I mean, we talk about tough decisions, and they're at that time right now because now you're factoring in not just the recruits, who's on campus, who might be leaving, who's in the portal. They're factoring all that in. So he's not going to waste a lot of time. He's not going to see a guy – he's not going to go see a guy they don't want. So guys they don't feel like they have a chance with, sometimes recruiting's that old competition – kick, pass, punt. Well, sometimes you're punting.
Bama Nation 334 here in the comments. He's wanting an update on a running back in this class. Anything on that front, guys?
Well, as we mentioned, Jaden Baugh is going to be coming in for an official visit this weekend. A lot of eyes are going to be on that trip. Nick Saban also has an in-home visit with him a little later this week. Now, there were a few guys that Alabama saw last week. Kevin Riley is committed to Miami, Tuscaloosa County. player, and then Kewan Lacey out of Texas, Lancaster High School. And we've talked about Lacey several times. But yeah, I think Ole Miss, seems to have a little bit of traction with Lacey. There's a lot of confidence coming out of the Ole Miss side, and I think a decision might happen this week with Lacey, but as far as remaining running back targets, I'm really watching to see what happens. Of course, with Lacey, but really with Jaden Ball, Kevin Riley, Daniel Hill also still in the mix. We should see Alabama visit him early this week as well. So there's still some options out there. I think as long as they can get one of their top guys, they're going to be happy. If they can get two, fantastic. But I think they'll certainly sign one high school player.
Daniel Hill might be the strangest recruitment in this class, oddly enough. We're not talking about Daniel Hill in this class enough. He has been on campus literally more times than Roy Dale this year. He showed up at the state championship on Wednesday wearing a Bama beanie. He hasn't committed. There's been talk of several other schools, South Carolina most prevalent, but I have no idea. My guy's just moving at his own pace, so good luck to him. But we really haven't felt like I was thinking about that when I was looking at the remaining targets. I was like, I feel like I know him so well, but I know nothing about it. I don't have a clue what's going on with Daniel Hill at this stage.
And everybody says follow the visits. We always say follow the visits. Follow the visits. Yes. You can't. Don't follow the visits on this one. He's only been. I think he's only been to South Carolina, 2 or 3 times, maybe twice. He's been to Tennessee once or twice. He did take an official visit to Mississippi State this past weekend, and that's where his father played. Father always kind of encouraged him, look at Alabama. But with the new coaching staff, Jeff Levy, we'll see how much emphasis they put to try to keep him home.
Guys, it's been a lot of fun. Ryan Williams, regardless of classification, one of the very best wide receivers at the prep level, has reclassified to 2024. He plans to be a part of Nick Saban's 18th team at the University of Alabama. That's crazy just to say, isn't it?
It's crazy because we spent the first 9 years saying he was leaving. I was discussing this on the roundtable that for 9 or 10 years as he was leaving after the season, right?
Yeah.
They just kept predicting it. NFL, I mean, you get him linked to Canadian Football League teams, right? Now he's going to retire. He's always riding off in the sunset, He's always 2020. It was big. Now he's frustrated. He's always retiring. Eventually, they'll get it right.
I just don't know many coaches that ride off into the sunset on a quarterback heater that is still ongoing.
No, most of them go grudgingly. You got to drag them.
Usually, it's the bad quarterback that takes them out. I don't think Nick's dealing with that right now, guys.
I mean, he seems to be living okay.
Oh, got a few in the pipeline too. All right, guys. Great stuff. Appreciate you taking the time. I'll let you get back to your primary occupations.
Yep. Go find us at BamaOnline.com.
That's right. Come hang out with us at BamaOnline.com. Hang out with us on the roundtable, our premium message board right there at BOL as well. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button right now if you don't mind. Turn on those notifications. You'll get all of our video content as it drops. For Tim Watts, Andrew Bone, Travis Schreier, thanking you once again for joining us on the Recruiting Roundup. And until next time, so long, everybody.